Happy 4th weekend, and let's just remember the reason for the Independence Day. So let's begin with a prayer. Let's know together that the infinite wisdom, the power, and the love of God that's everywhere is with each of us right now. That we don't try to make something happen here. We simply allow the beauty and the wisdom and the guidance of God to move through us, to surrender to allow God to be God as each of us today. Let's know that that same God is the God of every individual throughout this universe, or none. So we start today with love, because God is love. And it's that love that we want to feel, not just now, but every day of our lives. And it's that same love that we want to express. We want to express love to everyone. It's God speaking to God and God answering. Thank you, Father, for this and for so much more. And so it is. Amen. Brother Ed is going to lead us in the congregational song. As I share my open heart, my love, I come to know. As I come to know my love, I allow my love to grow. As I allow my love to grow, the meaning is revealed. As I learn to heal myself, so the world is healed. Thank you, Brother Ed. Welcome, everybody. Today's reading is from For the Inward Journey by Dr. Howard Thurman. Surrounded by all the memories and the dreams and the hopes and the desires of so great a host of witnesses, we still ourselves in the presence of God, gathering together all the things that are needful for our peace. The mood of thanksgiving overwhelms us when we remember how good and great is our fortune, even as we are mindful of the ways hard and difficult for so many whose names are known to us and whose pictures are vividly in our minds. It is so great a privilege to experience the watering of one's roots at a time of dryness in the world. You know, Dr. Thurman wrote this over 50 years ago. Matter of fact, probably 70 years ago now. It's like he wrote it yesterday. You know, I think the names and the pictures of the people who've been killed are emblazoned in our minds right now. But we have a choice, and we right now, we're allowing change to move through us. And the change that's occurring is not simply for the people of color, because that understanding and concept, they've known it for their entire lives and for many, many generations. The awareness and the awakening that's occurring is in the white population. You know, if you are a Native American, a Latino, or a African American, you understand what it's like to be persecuted. You understand what it's like to have your land, your life, all be changed by, the populace, the white populace. But I think that the vivid murder George Floyd shifted something in people, the white population in the United States and around the world. What it shifted was the idea that everything was okay. That after the 60s and the civil rights movement, that things had changed. And the reality is that all people of color know the truth. It hasn't. You know, the spreading of falsehoods by the people in the South after the Civil War about how African Americans weren't as intelligent and weren't as capable as white Americans. You know, by 3 years after the war, African Americans were running the states of all over the South because they were more populous than the white Americans, and they took office and things were going very well until the white Americans realized that they had lost their power. They struck back. They started the rumors that these people were not intelligent enough, not capable enough. And they started creating laws that surrounded it. They had never let the Africans who came to America learn how to read and write. So they scheduled tests to be able to vote. And if you couldn't read or write, you couldn't vote. So they took over the South. And along with that was no change to the attitude. Things are changing now. People are starting to see the truth. They're feeling the truth. They're knowing the truth. And if you go back in time, what African Americans in particular should be very proud of is their heritage, their roots. You know, back in the 14th century, the country of Mali, which was a huge country in Africa, was the richest country in the known world at that time. They had more than 50% of all the gold and the salt, which was an extremely rare commodity and a very important one because there's no refrigeration. So gold and salt, they had more than 50% for the entire old world. That nation and its king, I think the king's name was Mansa Musa. His wealth was extremely immense. It was far more immense than Jeff Bezos of Amazon, the richest person in the world right now, if you extrapolate globally. These people had a very proud society, very knowledgeable society. They had libraries and schools and almost like universities. That's where people came from. You know, we all have a rich heritage, every one of us, you know, going way back, but we also have things that we have to be considered. We have a lot of racist and prejudiced feelings that have been embedded from our generations past, that have been passed down. And the Southern piece is very obvious, but the Northern piece really isn't as much. Now, I'll speak for myself. I'm actually half Sicilian and half Irish. And the Sicilians who came over here were looked down upon. They were treated not very well because they couldn't speak the language. But eventually, because they were still white, they merged into society. The Irish were some of the first police forces. And when you understand what the police force was about, it wasn't about keeping law and order, it was about keeping people in order, primarily African Americans. Very interesting. For me, I had a personal feeling of an experience about what prejudice is really about. Back many years ago when I married my African American wife, my father, who was Irish, disown me. It took him 13 years to pick up the phone and call me and say, I've wasted all these years. It was his awakening. Not everyone gets that opportunity. People's racism and prejudice runs very, very deep. You know, this is the 4th of July weekend. We celebrate our Independence Day, and you know, it was started with a Declaration of Independence. Let me read a piece of it for you. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, which includes women, are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My gosh, how explicit is that? That all people. Now, I'm not going to say that the writers of the Declaration of Independence were wonderful people. They did have beautiful beliefs, but they were also slave owners. They had a lot to atone for themselves. I think most generations have, if you look backwards, have things that we need to atone for. But going back to the writing of the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, and that part of their rights are to life, to liberty. No one can enslave you. No one can control you. And the pursuit of happiness. That you're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to have joy. You're allowed to be free. They say that joy is the evidence of God on earth. We all want joy. We all want to feel joy. We all want to seek joy. Now is the time. You know, our roots go far deeper than any genealogical chart can show us. I mean, and I love watching this show, Finding Your Roots, with Lou Gates Jr., Louis Gates Jr. It's amazing, you know, especially when he does the stars who are African American, and they go backwards and they start to see their path from even the ship that they were brought over on, their forefathers, and then going back further, finding that they were part of a vast, amazing society. All of us have those roots, have different types of roots. But we have something that's very much in common. When you trace back our roots, it goes back to our source, our Creator. And the reason why all people are created equal is not because of the color of their skin or their belief in God or any other aspect of their being. It's the spark of the Creator that's within us all. It binds us all together. Christian D. Larson says that those are the golden chains that bind us together. So when we water our roots, what we're remembering is that we're all one. And I think that's the message that it's being broadcast right now by everyone who's protesting, by everyone who's waking up right now. I'm so grateful that white America has woken up. Now, of course, there are quite a few people that dissent with that. But we also know that there are still people that are part of the Ku Klux Klan. There are white nationalists and neo-Nazis and all sorts of things happening. But good triumphs over evil. Our connection with each other is a deep spiritual connection. It's a deep down connection that binds us in a way that no mother, father, sister, brother could. We need to water our roots. We need to go back to the beginning. We need to remember what our source is, who our source is. And it's from that place that we live, move, and have our being. So let's get still for a minute. Let's take a deep breath together. So in this moment, we go back. Go all the way back. Past our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, and further. We go back to the place where the perfection of life began, our Garden of Eden. And let's know that the Father that created us, the Father, Mother God, is inside each and every one of us. That spark of creation, that link, that clicks into place when we recognize that we're all brothers and sisters of the divine. We remember the faces of all those who died, all those who've been murdered along the way. We don't forget. They'll always be emblazed in memory in our heart, mind, and soul. And we remember that even those that murdered those people are our brothers and sisters. And even if they can't see the truth for themselves, we see it for them. We water our roots. We allow them to go deep, 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 deep. We recognize that my life and your life and the life of everyone throughout the history of this universe are part of one life. As the Buddha had said, there's only one of us here. As Jesus said, I am what thou art what I am. I am the Father of one. I and every individual soul throughout this universe are linked together in perpetuity. And that's what we water. That's what we see. And those are the people who recognize that we put in power and hold them accountable to delivering the truth. Thank you, Father, for this, what eyes cannot see nor ears hear. It's all in divine order. We're all waking up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. Brother Ed, you want to give us a song? Yeah.
There's so many things in this whole world that ain't worth saving at all. Like mankind's inhumanity, fear-based ideologies, war, greed, inequality, social injustice and bigotry, and we're defended by our prejudice, divided by our fear. Tell me, who do we trust when there's only us? And where do we go from here? So I'm waiting on the new world, knowing that there must be more than this. Waiting on the promise of a brand new world. Waiting on the new world. Waiting for the world to live as one. Waiting for the vision to come to fruition. I'm waiting on the new world. The human heart is an open field where visions wait to be revealed. All our dreams are running wild and free. And you can watch the new world being born, the formless turning into form. You can see the dream become reality. We're imagining this dream we're in is all happening right now. And the impossible is possible. It's possible somehow. So we're bringing in the new world, knowing that it all begins like this. Starting with the promise of a brand new world. Bringing in the new world, where the world can live as one. We're watching the vision come to fruition. We're bringing in the new world. 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 When love and unity will set us free in the new world. Yes, it will. We're bringing in the new world. We're bringing in the new world. The dream we believe in will be received in the new world. Bringing in the new world. Bringing in the new world. We're watching the vision come to fruition. We're bringing in the new world. Bringing in the new world.
Well, this is our conscious sharing time. So what you have the information on the screen right now. If you notice that the screen shot that you're seeing of us is a little clearer, it's because there's a new camera.
There's a new camera in town.
There's a new camera. It said there's a new camera in town. this has been a journey. It's been an expensive journey along the way. So we really appreciate your donations, whatever you can afford, either to go online, a secure website, and make a donation that way, or if you'd like, you can mail a check to the studio. And the address that you see is 2202 Eagle Boulevard, Santa Monica, California, 90405. So really thank you for that. Yeah. It's okay. Close it out. So this is again, this is the 4th of July weekend, Independence Day, but it's something very special this year because it's independence for everyone. It doesn't matter you know, so many people right now have been divided by color, race, creed, belief, even sexual identity. And none of those things are seen in the eye of God. There's only one perfect spiritual being that they see. It's you. It's me. It's every sentient being throughout the universe. So let's close out with a prayer, and then Reverend Bonnie will do a Native American ceremony, and then we'll do the prayer of protection. So let's turn within together. Let's know that the energy of love, which is God, moves from where we are right now concentrically out into our community, this country, and the world, circumventing everyone and everything, embracing everyone, including everyone. Knowing that love is the key to our life, our breath, our everything. God is love. God is, I am. I remember that. I awake to my truth. I water my roots back to the Creator, now and always. Thank you, Father. Amen. So let's bring up Reverend Bonnie, and we'll unmute her and let her do a ceremony for us, and then we'll do the prayer of protection. Close out, and then be able to share.
Trying to unmute.
So why don't we unpin this video?
I pinned it. Where is it? Distance. It's not working. It's not working. She has her settings.
Can't hear? You can't hear.
She has her settings.
Tell Reverend Bonnie she's been on mute. We can't unmute her.
Reverend Bonnie, you're still on mute.
Oh, you just unmuted.
You just unmuted. We got you now, I think.
Say something.
Okay, I did the ceremony. I guess nobody heard it then, huh?
No, let's try it again. Ask it to try it again.
Did you try it again? And can you hear this? Am I giving you your beat? Is that
No,
all right?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, now I hear you now. We all hear you.
Okay, somebody muted me because I didn't. All right, are we unmuted?
Yes.
Yes, we're muted.
Right? Okay, and Ed,
Yes,
don't play this time while I do the ceremony, okay?
you got it.
Okay. So let's just celebrate today the love that we are and the freedom that we have in the spirit. So just relax, and let the sounds carry you to that sacred place. And sing after me. On wings of love, I really will, my child, flow through the world. Sing after me. On wings of love, you will, my child, flow through the world. On wings of love, you will, my child, flow through the world. Aho.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God, the power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God
Ideas. All is well.
We're going to stop the recording now.